This tutorial is going to be about the Pigeon shape builder exercise. So if we jump into the Pigeon option, we've got the second page here. I'm going to, with the back arrow key, drag around all the stuff except these ones down here. Shift, click on this one so it adds it to the selection, and I'm just going to flick them around so that it's an outline, and I'll maybe make it 1 millimeter, just to make it a bit more obvious. And so I can now start dragging things over. If I check out the layers, what you'll find is I've got the pigeon, which is locked, and I'm working on the layer just above it. So I don't have to worry about knocking things. So I can bring over some of these elements and start to work it all out. I can go in and look at things a little bit later. Here's the body. I'm going to worry if things don't line up too much. Shift, just dragging it out a wee bit so it's a wee bit bigger. Got this one here for the wing. This one, I'm going to try and line it up at the bottom, but we can see it kind of goes out over the edge a wee bit. I've got the triangle here. If I go outside to get the rotation tool outside that corner, if I hold down shift, it's going to move it to 45 degrees and horizontal. So I know it's nice and straight. I'm going to put this in here, and now I'm going to go in and have a closer look. So in this case, I'm going to go Command Y. So using the magnifying glass in this case to click and drag, and just looking so I can line up some of this stuff here. I'll go up and have a look at the head. And try and line things up a wee bit. Not too bad, that'll be fine there. So the next bit I need to go and have a look at is this bit here where we have the shorter wing. Just bring it back a wee bit. That looks like it's a better setup. I can also see that this triangle doesn't go below the wing, so that looks pretty good. And so I can start to join these things up a wee bit. So actually the circle, I'm just going to hold down the Option key, drag it out so I've got a copy, because I know I'm going to need that for the eyes, stuff like that. So I select just the pigeon, and then with the shape builder tool, I can start to join some of these things together. So I've got this, I've got the body, done with this bit around the edge, so I can minus click on that. Holding down the Option key for minus, I can knock off some of these things. I have to knock off a wee bit more. Oh, actually, what am I doing? I took off too much, so it's these two that I want to minus off. This looks like it's going to get joined. is one item. I'm not worried about this little bit up here yet. I'll get to that. This looks like it can all join up. Now have a look at this little bit down here. Like that. Let's see if I go right up close here. There's a little wee bit more that I need to join up. That's good. Looks like there's a little bit here. I'll zoom in on. Just select around that area. I'll select everything I need. Get the shape builder tool. There we go. So it's nice. The tail comes in behind the wing. The body goes in behind the tail. Now the other little area that I have here, and I'm going to get this square and bring it over, is I want to get this neckline. If I switch on the, I'll go Command Y, I can see this kind of element here that I want to get this kind of neckline through here. So I'm going to enlarge this, rotate it, get it there, and shall option click that. Try and get it nice and level, and I'll do another one for this head section. So with all of this, I can just select it all again, switch off the eye for that one below, and we can use the shape builder to define those shapes. So option, get rid of all this stuff through here. I can join these shapes. And remember, if I want this as a separate shape, click on it. Now with this, we've got the neckline. If I have a look at some of these little wee bits here, you can see there's some odd little bumps that are occurring with lining up. The easiest one here is if I get P for pen, when I go over that second point, it should let me minus it out. So when I enlarge up and I have a look at this point, I can see there's an odd little shape here, so I can delete that out. Another little shape. So I can just drag around. I'll do it with the solid tool, got all that. Shift, click on the outside, and it's going to leave me with just that little line. So I've deselected this, and then I can just go delete. And let's see what's happening over here. I'll do the same thing for a start. I'll just drag around. Shift, no, so it's just a problem with the points here. So if I click on it, okay, we can see what's going on. So there's just too many points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit P for pen, and I can come in here, and you'll see it changes to a minus when I go over one of those points. And I can just minus it out. If I wanted to get the direct selection tool, I could grab one of these Bezier handles, try and smooth that curve a little bit. This is more stuff we'll go through when we start getting to the into the pen tool. Looks like I've got a few other little bits here. So again, I just need to grab them all and go back to the shape builder and just make sure I've got those little shapes that I was missing. Command Y. So this is all looking pretty good now. So there's a few other little bits and pieces. So we've got the legs. I'll just bring them in. And this can be the beak. So I'll bring this circle back over for a second and we'll do a little bit here. So with this, remember outside and holding the shift key, go over that point to scale and hold the shift key. I'm just going to go Command Y to get the outline mode so I can see everything the way it is. The circle, I'm just going to scale down a wee bit and I'll just go Command plus. So a few things here, I'll grab this and I'll go Command C, which is copy, Command F, which pastes it in front, and now if I hold down on the rotation tool, I'll find reflect. I can click and drag, and if I hold the shift key, it gives me a mirror image. I'm going to drag it. When you're in Illustrator, if you're in this keyline mode, you need to click on the lines to move it around. I'll bring the circle down. And I'm just trying to line it up roughly with that corner. Command C for copy, Command F paste in front, and then I can click and hold down, and with the shift key I can move it across until it kind of lines up with this other corner. Shift, both of these are selected, and now I can just run across it with the shape builder tool. I'm not going to worry about taking that line out because I'll just have one object in front of another. I forgot to leave the circles for the eyes, so I'll just hold the shift key and draw a circle. And copy F, click off because it was a bit hard to get it, and I'll move it slightly. Okay, so now we should have a bit of a pigeon going, so we can start to colour things in. So overall we've got our swatches, and I'll just quickly check some colours. I'll double click, blue for the head. If I get this, I can drag and drop into the swatches to add a colour in. So I've got there a line of none. The eyes I'm going to have as black, so I'll click on fill, so that's to the front, black, and a line of none. I lost my shape, it's obviously gone to the back somewhere. So if I hold down Control, I can click on stuff and it'll say, sorry, highlight it, Control click, and I'll have an option here that says Arrange, Center the back. And now I can see those options. With this, I'm going to do a line of none, and I'm going to fill it with a grey. Pull it down a bit, maybe I'll leave it with a little bit of blue. And I'm now going to go, instead of control clicking this time, I'll go Object, Arrange, bring to the front, so it's over top of the beak. And then the beak, I'm just going to go, okay, fill, give it a yellow and a line of none. I want that colour in there as well, either from here or clicking and dragging from here. I can drop it into that. Fill. So not so sure about that colour. Might get one that's might have it a bit more as a orange, and with the yellow get that colour. Alright, so going down again, line, none, fill, let's give another colour, and we can just work our way down around the pigeon, adding in some colours. Line for both of them as a highlight, and I'll just take that off. Now I can see with the colours that there's something else that's been left here. It looks like some kind of odd point. So I'm just going to make sure by shift clicking on that, shift clicking on this, shift clicking. So everything's deselected except for whatever that mark is. Delete. And then it's gone. I was obviously just a bit messy with my drawing. With this, I can grab one leg, which I think comes over the top. The other leg, I can go Object, Arrange, Send to the back. So there's no need to cut these things out to knock them out of the pigeon. There's a few other things, like at the moment we've talked about the swatches, but there's other options as well. One of them is a gradient. So we can start working with gradients. So in this case, if I click on the chest, and I'll have it as have that gradient. So this one here, I might leave it as white up here, but this color, if I double click on it, I can choose that. I can change the opacity down of it, or I can pick a different color. In this case, I'm just going to change it to CMYK so that I can darken it slightly, bring a little more darkness into that bottom part. Okay, that's a bit better. And then when I come back to the gradient, I've also got the option with this middle slider that I can push it more, so there's less white, or if it comes down the other way, there's more white, so I can kind of control that gradient a wee bit. And I've also got the angle, so if I go 45, minus 45, and obviously I can type in other options as well, -30, -25, so I'm just tipping the angle of this a wee bit. So we have that. There's our pigeon. The legs, I'm just going to, with the line, I'm just going to make them black. And Command plus, whoops, Command plus, just get these circles. And in this case, I'm going to go I for the eyedropper. And click on that. So if I hold down the command key, it goes back to the arrow, and click on the other one, and it's back to the eyedropper when I let go. And so I can colour that up. If I click on this area here, you'll see if I'm on the line I won't get it, but if I'm on fill, there's a different kind of gradient. So I can select that, and it goes through, and it works in quite a different way. So it's got points and it's got lines. So you'll see here that we can kind of move these points around and it will change the color. So this one here, if I want it to match in with the color there, I can double click and I can take it back to white so that it's kind of tying in, and I can also expand that or shrink it down a bit. So I have that, and I'll just move it back into this corner a wee bit. Click on the color, 100%. You can see it's got a little bit of grey there, and it's because the black isn't directly down to 1. So I'll take that out. Some of these other aspects, so maybe this one here, I'm going to change it to the pink, color. If I want to know exactly what that pink is, go to the swatches. Unfortunately, I didn't put it on my swatches, so let's just click on here, swatches, drop it in. Now if I come back to this, back to the gradients, fill, okay, edit the gradients again, points, so now this one, I can double click, got my swatches, so I can pick that color, and again, how far I want it to expand out. This one here, I'm just going to drag it off so that point's not there as well. You can see I can add in other points if I want to, and maybe with this one here I'm going to try and get that blue. So double click, swatches, there's my blue, and again let's radiate that out a bit, move it, trying to move it to collect that corner a wee bit, and I can once again kind of expand it out a wee bit if I want to. So it's a nice effect to play with. It eliminates that kind of hard line again, but that's okay. So it's a way of kind of changing things around and adding a different kind of more interesting tonality into this image. So now what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the recolor tool, which is a really nice way of working. So if I grab this whole pigeon, and I just scale it down, maybe not quite that much, and I go Command C for copy, Command F for paste in front, and I'm just going to move it along. For convenience, I'm going to go Command G, which is Object Group, Object Group. Just makes it a wee bit easier. And what you'll see is when you click on something that's coloured, you end up with this thing that looks like a colour wheel, Recolor Artwork Tool. If you don't see this bar at the top, it might be because your workspace is on something like Essentials, where it disappears. So in this case, I'm just going to put it Essentials Classic or a different mode. So now when I click on this, I'll end up with this tab that comes in, Advanced Options. Really, it's a pretty amazing tool. So with this, you've got these three symbols at the bottom. If I click on the first one, it changes the hierarchy of those colors. So it's still working with the same colors, but it is giving you different options. Quite like the look of this one. The next one changes the saturation. When you change the saturation, you still have the option to jump back and to cycle through the colors. So it's a pretty powerful tool. So I like the body like that. It's quite different. I still have the option though to come in here and to mess with the colors. So if I get the purple, I can go through the hue slider and change it. One of the options I quite liked was black. So I can take the saturation right down to grey, brightness right down, so that I can end up with just a solid black. So all of these colors can be changed. If I go to edit, you also have the option of cycling through the colors with everything, but everything stays the same. And then I've got options where I can add or delete colors. I can unlock colors and move them around, so you can see the bottom wing. Now I can boost the saturation up overall because that was brought down, and I still have the option to play with all of these sliders. Green's a bit bright, I can take it down. Minus. Get rid of that. So there's a lot of options in here. Go OK when you're ready. You can even put your own color palettes into that system. So with this, I'm going to grab one of these again. This time, just while I've got that group, hold down the Option key, click and drag, hold the Shift key to keep it nice and straight. Let's have a look at our layers. So we've got all of these. With this one, I'm going to go Command C, copy. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to make sure I'm on it by getting rid of that blue dot. And I'm going to go Command F, which pastes it in exactly the same place. And I'm going to enlarge and have a look at this pigeon. I'm going to get rid of some of the Actually, I'll leave the some of the details here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start to look at patterns. This is something that we'll go through further through the assignment. But if I ungroup everything so that I can grab just elements, if I get this section here, when we've been looking at the swatches, there's a library. One, you can bring up all sorts of color swatches. So if we look at earth tones, it will bring up a whole lot of color swatches, and if I grab the folder and drag it into my swatches, I can add it. I can add gradients and all sorts of things in here, but one of the other options we have here is we have an option called patterns, and under basic graphics we've got lines. So what I can do is I can come in here and I can click on a line. You'll see that it adds these gradients in there. I can close it. If I double click, I can select all, and with that line I can choose a color. I can mess around with it in the color box. When I'm finished, just double click outside that square box, and it will go back to normal, and you'll see it's made the changes here. Now one of the other options, if I click on it, I can go control click, and can't see it, but if you go down, there's an option that says transform, and if you go across it says transform each, and it brings up this dialog box. The important thing here is if you switch off objects, it will only change the pattern. So if I have it on and I change the rotation, it changes the whole thing. If I switch that off, it only changes the rotation of the pattern. So I'll leave it on that. The scale, you can play around with that, so you can change the fineness of the lines, shuffle things back and forth. You can see it moving to the left or the right. And once I've got what I want, I'll go OK. Now with this, actually let's go with this one here. We'll try one more. So I'll go back to the patterns, basic graphics. I'm going to bring in dots. I'm going to get some dotty patterns. It says it's online at the moment, so I'll just flip that around, hit dots. Again, double click on it in the swatches, and I can modify the color. I can modify these things individually. So let's change that to the orange. Double click outside that box. You can see that everything's changed here. The thing is, when you change the pattern, it gets rid of the color behind, and I'll show you why that's important in a minute. Down to transform, transform each, and you can see the dots have got smaller. If I want them bigger, I can bring them up. If I want them the same, make sure they're the same up here. So I'll go 150, tab, which takes it to the next square, 150. Can shuffle around the horizontal, the angles, and I'll just go with that. So I'll go OK. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of some of these items underneath, because essentially this is going to work as an overlay. So if I go back to my layers, and I switch the other one on, you can see that these colors now overlay over the top of what is underneath. And I've still got the option to come back in here, swatches. I don't like that so much, so I'm just going to grab all of those and I'm just going to change them back to white of none. I like that a wee bit better. Control, click on it, back to transform each, and maybe I'm going to make the patterns or the dots even bigger. Let's bump it up to 200. Okay, and so I like it better as a white. Now that this is, and actually let's just let's now do the same thing that we did before. We're going to select this, just Option, Shift, bring it over. I'm going to go Command G to make sure it's grouped. And I'm going to play with that tool again, the recolor. So I'll click on it. But before I go to recolor this time, in the swatches, I'm going to go to my library. I'm going to bring in kid stuff. And I'm going to bring in a couple of these by dragging in the folder into the swatches, bring those menus in. And now what you'll find is when I go recolor and advanced options, they come in here. So I've now got jelly beans and clown that I've brought in. So I can click on these and it will affect it using the color scheme that I had before. So I'm going to swap the colors around. You can see it affects the patterns as well. It's not affecting the this because it's white, so it can't really cycle through that color so much, but it's definitely affecting it down in the tail. Saturation again. We can play with. And if I find that too much, I can go back to edit, but I can also cut down the number of colors. Put it back on all, and I'm going to go back to edit just so I can boost up the saturation again a bit. Go back to assign and cycle through some of these options. Doesn't seem to be changing the doesn't seem to be changing the head at all. Now I've modified those, so it's changing everything. I quite like that. And again, back to edit, we can get some of these colors and we can mess around with them a wee bit. It's kind of changing the whole wheel because I've got everything linked. So if I just want to change one, then it's just going to change one, and I can move that around, and the black up that up a wee bit, and I can start to change the hue of that a wee bit. You can see it cycling around here, and it's the brightness that's keeping keeping it dark, so I'll take that back to a yellowy colour. Saturation, brightness, there we go. So go OK. Yes, I'll change that. Very, very easy way to change things, and of course you can just come back out of here and you can change things manually. So with this, the whole thing's grouped. If I double click again, I'm going to be able to go into these groups until I eventually get the eyes, and I'm going to take them back to a full of black and a line of none. Double click out of it. And so with this recolor tool, very, very quickly, we've got multiple variations on this color system.